What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Fantasy Files. I am back again today to talk about The Great Hunt, the second book in the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. So I'm actually re-recording this episode because the first one I recorded like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago was just like really, really bad once I got into editing. And I'm like, you know what? I just need to do this again. So I'm going to go back through these original notes. And some of this stuff might be a little bit outdated for me because at the time of recording this now, I have read The Dragon Reborn and I loved it. And I actually have a really cool episode for that coming out in about a week or so. As always, if you haven't already, please hit those subscribe and like buttons. It really does help us out a lot to grow the channel. You can also follow us on Twitter at Files Fantasy, or just look up the Fantasy Files podcast in the search. So Gabe isn't joining me for these videos, but we do have an episode coming out for Jade Legacy soon. And we also currently have a giveaway going on for the first two books in that series. So you can check that out here. But yeah, join in on that giveaway. We're giving away audiobooks for the first two books, and we would love to have people participate in that. All right, let's get into this review. It is going to be full spoilers for book two. Even though I have read The Dragon Reborn, I'm sticking to just my original notes that I took for this book. So there will be no future spoilers in case you're a first-time reader kind of reading along with me. But yeah, this is your spoiler warning. So 3, 2, 1, you've been warned. So I'll be honest, this book confused me a little bit more than the first one did. And I definitely wasn't able to catch everything. There's whole characters that I just don't remember who they are or what they did. There were whole POVs that I just don't remember, like the White Cloak chapters. I really don't remember what they did in this book. But overall, I like this book quite a bit, and I'm excited to read the next ones and catch a ton of things that I missed while doing rereads later on, because I definitely will do rereads once I finish the series. This is going to become like a Dresden Files or a King's Dark Tidings that I just read over and over and over. This book definitely gets away from doing the Lord of the Rings thing and comes up with some super unique ideas, or at least unique for the time. But I've certainly not read another story like this one. I think this one did a lot of really cool things with the genre. I thought it was cool how this book deals a lot with alternate realities and alternate timelines. That was a pretty consistent thing throughout this whole book, and it was some of my favorite parts of it. So people say they had a hard time with the names in the first book, with all the like Lan and Rand, Moraine, Egwene, all those kind of names are very similar. And I really didn't have that problem with the first book. I don't know why, but this one I did have a pretty big problem with the names, just because they were really unique names, let's put it that way. And so yeah, a lot of the times I just couldn't remember them, and so many characters get introduced. So you know, it's no wonder that there's like entire people that I don't remember that I'm just going to have to catch on a reread. I would say right now, as I'm going through these, I'm just trying to have fun and not do a lot of kind of rewinding, and just kind of enjoy the story as it goes along. And if I miss some things, then, you know, there's friends on Twitter and stuff like that that I can ask for clarification. But you know, I think this first time through, there's going to be a lot of things that I miss, but you know, I'm just cruising through this and having a good time. So I think I noticed it more in this book than I did the last one, but I I don't know if this is a hot take or not in the fandom. I haven't really looked into it, but I don't think that I like Kate Redding as a narrator. I really wish it was just Michael Kramer doing the audiobooks. I think that Kate Redding for me, first of all, the when it switches over between them, it's very jarring. And it's like, I'm listening to Michael Kramer, then halfway through a chapter, it'll switch over to Kate, and I have to kind of like do like a mental like refocus to pay attention to what Kate is saying. I think that Kate her voices all sound the same. Like I'm never quite sure who is talking at any given time. Like at the end of the book, it is switched over to Kate, and I thought that at the end there, Egwene was the one who was holding Rand after the battle, as like, she thinks he's dying and all this stuff. But it actually, I had to rewind, and it was Min who was holding him. And so a lot of these voices that she does, I can't really tell apart. So yeah, I'm not really sure why they have two narrators on these books, because I know Michael Kramer does a lot of his own audiobooks where Kate isn't there. And I'm pretty sure they're married, but I don't think that they do every audiobook together. So, I don't really know why that's a thing. And I would just much rather have Michael doing the voices. But besides that one thing, I did really enjoy this book. I think it did a lot of, it's only the second book in the series, but it does a lot of new things that the first one kind of alluded to, but wasn't exactly doing. And so I really enjoyed this book. I think it opened up the world a lot, not as far as like places we see, but just in the way that we're seeing Tar Valon, and we're seeing all these things going on inside the city, and how the Aes Sedai are trained, and kind of Rand going off on his own with Loyal. And yeah, I just really liked all the little adventures in this book. And I really don't have too many complaints. So as far as world building in this book, like I said, we see the world open up a little bit. We go to Tar Valon. We see the girls training and becoming Aes Sedai. And it's kind of this like harsh place with lots of rules. It doesn't give them much slack, and they are there to learn and become more powerful and become more in control of their abilities. We see the warders getting trained and kind of how that goes down. And the time in Tar Valon was great. We see Rand, Loyal, and Huron go into an alternate dimension where evil basically took over. And those were some of my favorite chapters, where they're in like this pocket dimension. We see this other town. I can't remember the name, but it has like this game of politics. I wish that had gotten fleshed out a little bit more. I think I liked how King Killer did it. And I kind of wonder if King Killer is taking a cue from this book. But I liked how King Killer did it, where you have like these rings and people send you the ring. And if you get an iron one, that means someone thinks like lower of you. And I just don't think that the politics was super fleshed out in this book. But I really hope to see it in a future book and see, that play out into a bigger political game. We also see the girls, when they get kidnapped, they go to the Shanshan. I wasn't entirely clear on where this was located, but I thought it was a super interesting, I don't know if culture is the right word, but I thought it was interesting how the roles get reversed, and we see these women who can channel be taken prisoner and have the one power withheld from them, like the Aes Sedai do to the men. We get a little bit of a role reversal here. But the Shan-Chen are also very horrible people, and they treat their captives literally like animals. I wasn't completely sure on whether the slavers were channelers themselves. I feel like something was said about it, but again, so much happened, it was a little hard to keep track. So I don't have too much to say about any of the side characters, but as far as what was going on with our main characters in this book, Rand is kind of an asshole at the beginning of this book. He's being really rude to his friends. And he's, tells Loyal to go back to his homeland in a super rude way. And he's just being a total jerk. And I guess I was wrong in the last episode. He didn't end up running away from the group, like he was planning to do at the end of Eye of the World. And I honestly think that would have been pretty cool if he was just out on his own and kind of, exploring and figuring himself out. I think that would have been really cool. But I'm happy with what we got of him in this book. He keeps denying all this evidence that he is in fact the Dragon Reborn. At every turn, he's just trying to deny it. And, I imagine he wants to go back to his old life. He's tired of all this high stakes adventure. He's also portrayed as kind of a bumbling idiot in this book sometimes. Like everything with Celine. Like, how do you not see that coming? Like, how do you not see that this person just wants to take advantage of you? But at the end of the book, it seems like he finally understands that he is in fact the Dragon Reborn. I'm super interested to see what he does with that knowledge going forward and how he uses that to his advantage. And it looks like many people are following him. Many people are raising the banner of the dragon, and they're joining his fight against the Dark One. But one of the saddest things that happened to him in this book is he loses his heron marked blade. It was so sad because it was such a piece of him, and it was handed down from his father. It was like this one thing that he had from his father. And so I'm really hoping he's able to get it repaired or something to get it back in some way. All in all, I liked where he ended up at the end of the book. He's going on to take up the responsibility of this mantle of being the dragon. And, I just hope he does a good job, and I hope he knows what that means and the kind of responsibility that will be placed on his shoulders. But he also really doesn't have a choice. He's kind of, he is Lews Therin. And so essentially, he's going to have to take up this responsibility, whether he wants it or not. So Egwene had a ton of character growth in this book. She kind of starts to stand on her own 2 feet, learning at Tar Valon. We see her making friends with Elaine and Min, and flirting with Galad, which she better stop, because she is Rand's girl. I want them to end up together so bad. So Galad better stay away. She gets captured by the Shan-Chen, and when she gets free, she is ready to deal out some serious punishment on those who held her captive. And I really think Nynaeve should have let her vent some of that pain onto her captors. It would have made for such an interesting character arc. But I love that scene where, Nynaeve gets everybody out, or gets Egwene out, and Egwene just has this furious, like she's about to wreck this chick. So then at the end, Egwene leaves Rand before he wakes up because of stupid Min, and I have a feeling this is going to put a stint in their budding relationship. She should have stayed with Rand while he was getting healed. I mean, she cares so much for him. You would think that she would want to be there while he's getting better and everything. So that was a little sad, and I hope they kind of make up later on. But yeah, Egwene was great in this book. I think she had we see a lot more of her personality, and we see a lot more dialogue with her, and I think this was a really good Egwene book. Nynaeve. I still don't like Nynaeve. I really, really don't. I know a lot of people end up liking her in later books, but I am not there yet. I don't see how I could be. I'm waiting for the moment where I really start to like Nynaeve, but I just cannot stand her right now. However, she does have some really cool moments in this book. She ends up putting a leash on one of the Shan-Chen, which I thought was really cool. She threatens her up and down and really takes control of the situation. She says, "I'll make you curse the first kiss your mother ever gave your father," which is such a creative way to tell somebody they're going to regret messing with you. So interesting thought, I think. I kind of think that Nynaeve should have been the one to be captive instead of Egwene, because I think that it would have like kind of taken her down a peg and made her realize that she's not as hot shit as she thinks she is. And I think it would have led to like a really interesting character arc where she starts to become like a little softer after Egwene and Elaine have to like rescue her. I think that would be so cool if she like had that moment where she realized that she does have to rely on other people, and just kind of this whole experience, even though it may be like traumatizing, I feel like it would be good for her like character. Another really cool scene and sad scene was as part of her acceptance into Tar Valon, she has to go through these trials where she sees her worst fears. One of them is being in Emmons Field several years in the future where many people have died. There's a new wisdom, and the new wisdom is like this really bad person. The other being this alternate life she's lived with Lan, married with children, and they are both like royalty. And she wants to stay, but she realized that she has to get to the gate before it closes. And Lan is like begging her to stay. And oh, it's so heartbreaking. And she even has this moment where she thinks like should I just stay? Like should I just stay here where everything is perfect? And yeah, I wonder what would have happened to her if she had just stayed in kind of this alternate reality place. And even the Aes Sedai were like, we don't know. Like we don't know what happens to anyone who doesn't come out of there. Like we don't know if that's a real place or what. And so I just think that's such an interesting idea, and I hope we get answers to that, like what happens to somebody who just stays in that place. But yeah, that scene was so sad. I was literally like tearing up. If I remember correctly, Moraine and Land are kind of MIA for most of this book. I don't really know what they were doing or where they went. Matt's body is slowly desiccating without the dagger. He is like really, really sick, and he's like gonna die. It gets to a point where they literally have like hours to get him the dagger. And then they get it, and it says that he was sent off for healing at the end of the book. And otherwise there weren't a lot of Matt scenes, but Yeah, so he's on his way to go get healed at Tar Valon. Perrin uses his abilities to greater effect in this book when his group gets separated from Rand and Huron. Huron is kind of like their sniffer. He can smell either danger or violence. And so Perrin has to use his abilities like a sniffer and communicate with the wolves to find the trail that they need to follow. Oh my God. So Tom is back, which I totally called. I knew he wasn't dead, but he's a total asshole in this book. Like I really, ooh, I did not like him, even more so than Nynaeve. I thought him and Rand were gonna have like this amazing reunion where like they're so happy to see each other, but Tom is just a dick to him. And I was so upset when he was acting like that. And he's like, where's my instruments? Like, give me my instruments. And Rand's like, chill, dude, I got him. But yeah, I just felt like he was such a jerk. And it's like, dude, like, you're alive. Holy shit. And he's like, where's my instruments? It's like, oh, fuck you, dude. Sorry for the language, but like, come on. Yeah, I don't know what Tom's deal was. It was sad that his girlfriend person got killed, and mostly due to the guys being there, Rand and company. But yeah, that was a bummer for sure because it seemed like Tom really liked her. So Celine was sketchy AF from the get-go. I don't understand how Rand didn't see this. I don't trust her at all. Um, yeah, the whole time she's just like, seek the glory and all this stuff. It's like, dude, do you not see that she's trying to, at the very least, ride your coattails into some royalty status? Like, come on, dude. Like, I know she's hot, but get a grip. Apparently, so at the end, it's apparently mentioned that she is Lanfear, which I totally missed when I was actually reading the book. I think I only, caught that on a podcast or another person's review or something. I don't know who Lanfear is supposed to be. I don't think it's been mentioned so far. Maybe I missed it, but I really don't think that we've been told who Lanfear is. And at the end, I get Lanfear came in and she was all ominous and stuff, but I don't think it was explained like why. Like, is she one of the people that was? No, she couldn't be one of the people that was called from the Horn because she came in earlier. Yeah, I don't know who she's supposed to be. I'm interested to find out. So some of my favorite quotes from this book, actually, I really only have a couple because I already said one, the one Nynaeve said, but to use the portal stone, he must dip himself back into that taint. I'm sorry, guys, but I'm probably going to make a taint joke every single review I do for this series because some of them are just so ripe for laughs and criticism. Those are always really great and make me laugh out loud when I'm listening to the audiobook. This was a cool quote when the horn had gotten blown. I think it's Arthur Hawkwing says, only a few are bound to the wheel, spun out again and again to work the will of the wheel and pattern of the ages. Sometimes the wheel adds to our number. Perhaps you will join us one day. And Arthur is saying this to Huron, alluding to the fact that others can become an immortal part of the wheel. So I think this does a couple things. It clarifies that not everybody gets reincarnated in this reality where time is a wheel, essentially. But it's also saying that the wheel, this is what I'm assuming, is the wheel is somewhat conscious, and it knows who it can add to the wheel for best effect, I guess, if that makes sense. Or at least that's what I got it. If I'm wrong, let me know down in the comments, as long as it's not a big spoiler. But yeah, I just thought that was a super interesting quote, that something decides who gets reincarnated and who doesn't. So that was a cool little bit of, I guess, world building that was kind of thrown in there. Some of my favorite moments in this book, the town they're in at the beginning gets attacked by Trollocs around the same point in the book as the first. And I'm kind of wondering if every book is going to open up with like a Trolloc attack, which moves them onto their journey, like it physically gets them moving. And then it ends with some sort of Rand versus Balsamon fight. Like I would be kind of upset. As much as those things are fun, I would be kind of upset if every book did that. Which I think, if I remember correctly, the third book also opens with the Trolloc attack. One of my favorite things about these books so far is how realistic the characters are. Rand is trying to get away from the Aes Sedai at the beginning, but then realizes that they're not going to imprison him. And Lan tells him that he can leave, but he procrastinates by only a couple hours and then gets a summon to the Amerlin seat. And he's like, oh crap, like, Lan, I'll go right now. Like, I'll go right this second. And Lan is like, you should have left last night if you wanted to. Like, now you have to go to the Amerlin seat. And this is just so relatable, because even though he knew that there was a possibility of danger, he felt kind of like this false sense of security after already running into a couple Aes Sedai. And he just hung around for that extra hour or two. And it ended up being the thing that made him have to go see the Aes Sedai. And I've been in so many situations where I was like, oh, if I had just left like an hour earlier when I was supposed to, I wouldn't have gotten pulled over or whatever. I think that's such a relatable and realistic kind of situation. So I don't remember exactly what was said besides just the general idea of it. But Moraine tells Rand that he is the Dragon Reborn, and tells him how he was born and who Tam is in relationship to him. And I remember this being a really great moment where I was like, oh, cool, we got that answered. So the horn gets stolen and they all have to go find it. But Rand gets separated from the group with Loyal and Huron, and has to journey through this like pocket dimension, which is where they meet Selene. And I really liked this scene. It was very like in my head, very visually stimulating for me, because I just imagined like this kind of smoky, misty wasteland where Trollocs and Murdraw have taken over. And they're having to like kind of sneak around and be really careful. They're running into creatures that Rand has never seen before. The one he has to kill with an arrow, I think, right when they meet Selene. Yeah, I really liked that whole kind of journey through there. So the horn gets retrieved and stolen back like a bunch of times. And it always seems way too easy for Rand to get it back. And then it gets stolen. It's like, oh, of course it did. So that was, I don't know. It was a little disappointing how it was so back and forth. I probably would have liked a longer journey with other stuff happening, and then getting the horn in the very end, and maybe have like one chance of losing it or something. But I thought it was a little bit comical how it all kind of just kept going back and forth and back and forth. But while all that was happening, something that was super sad was the inn that they're staying in. All of Loyal's books burn because he has to carry Huron. And I think that was the saddest part of the series so far, for sure. Oh, yeah. So after everyone groups up together again, we get Rand using a portal stone, which he doesn't know how to use. And it sends everybody through a kind of like a fast travel thing that makes them live dozens of alternate lives, maybe even hundreds, I think. This was a really cool scene, probably my favorite. And it was pretty crazy to see what could have been as far as like we see Rand and Egwene married and getting old and dying. Rand as a guard in the Queen's army. We see Rand as a beggar, or always going insane because of the one power. And every time at the end of like living all those lives, every time at the end, the Dark Lord would whisper, "I win again, Luce Theron." And it was just this like over and over and over. And we keep the way this chapter was written was so cool because it felt like you were like flashing through all of these lives. And you really felt it like viscerally. And we get hints at what some of the others went through as well, with Matt saying, "Rand, you know I'd never turn on you, right?" And he's like really upset, which, if you remember from my last video, is exactly what I thought Matt would do. So we know in some other reality that Matt has turned on Rand and done something bad. And so I really think he's going to end up doing more stupid stuff in this series. I think he's gonna be influenced somehow from not only the dagger, but just like a dark friend or the Dark Lord. They're gonna get to him somehow, I think. I mentioned earlier that I liked everything with the Shan-Chen and just kind of seeing that other culture of, even though they were like slavers and stuff, it was really interesting to like see how they think and what a role reversal looks like for the Aes Sedai. But let me just say, I knew that one Aes Sedai was the Black Aja from the moment she set the girls on the quest. I was like, something bad is going to happen. Why would you leave this place without telling anybody? Even if this Aes Sedai came up to you and told you that you all needed to leave and not tell anybody, like, why would you believe them? Matt's the one who ends up blowing the horn, and all the dead heroes come to fight by Rand's side and are so eager to fight for Luce Theron. This was a moment where I was like grinning from ear to ear. I love this whole thing. They said that they had fought many battles with him, and they keep confirming him as Luce Theron. Of course, he's like, my name is Rand. I'm from the Two Rivers. He just says that over and over. One of the dead heroes says, "You always did choose women who cause you trouble, Luce Theron," which makes me wonder like how many other times this has happened where he's had this woman that he's trying to save or is getting him into trouble and stuff. And then Arthur Hawkwing says something interesting. He says, "I have fought by your side times beyond number, Luce Theron, and faced off against you as many more." And so I thought it was interesting, like the wheel doesn't always spin. I mean, I guess we learned this from the chapter where Rand is going through all the different lives, but these people have been spun through the wheel, and sometimes they're on opposite sides of the battle. Sometimes they're fighting together, but they always kind of end up near each other and running in the same circle, I guess. And so I thought that was really interesting. I really like all this, just like this idea of time in this series so far. I'm also interested to see how the horn will be used in the future, because that was really cool seeing all these dead heroes kind of show up and fight by their side. I'm like, how many times can they do that? Can they just do that whenever they want? And lastly, Moraine has 2 more broken seals of the Dark One. You guys are so screwed. You're so screwed. All these seals are getting broken, and the Dark One is just gaining more and more power. They're so royally screwed. Okay, so future book questions, or I guess like theories, just kind of what I'm expecting out of the next few books. I'd really like to see more Moraine and Lan in the next book. I definitely felt the lack of them in this one. I'd like to know more about the statue and the crystal ball that's in it. I think that there's a lot of mystery around that. And, it's from the Age of Legends. So I'm wondering if it's something that, we would recognize. I hope we see more alternate timelines and just like weird scenes, like when Rand kept seeing the family eating at the table over and over, and there was the flies that every time the loop started over, there would be more and more flies. And I'm just really loving these like really trippy scenes. They always land really good for me. Will Mat get fully healed from the effects of the dagger? Will Rand accept his place as the Dragon Reborn? Will he start to remember his other lives as Lews Therin? That's something I'm really interested in, is how much of what he did in his previous lives will come up as he's living this one. And how will the Aes Sedai feel about Rand being the Dragon Reborn? I think it's going to be I think Tar Valon is going to be pretty split, with some people really supporting him and then other people not believing he's the dragon and wanting to kill him because they're afraid that he's going to screw everything up and become a madman. And lastly, where is my hype for the show? Oh man, you guys are not going to like this, or maybe you will. I feel like the fandom is really divided right now. So I'm going to talk about this more on the next Wheel of Time kind of episode that I do, but I have DNF'd the show. Like so episode 5 just came out, and I just really don't like the show for many reasons that I'll get into later, but I don't feel like they're even closely resembling the books. I think that they've added a ton of their own stuff that just replaces, entire parts of Eye of the World. And we haven't gotten one full scene from the book yet. We haven't gotten like one fully completed scene from the book. And I'm just kind of done with it. Every time I watch the show, I just get like really mad. And I feel like they're kind of abusing the source material. And yeah, I would rather not be upset every time I watch something. So, you know what? I have 11 or 12 more books of the Wheel of Time that I can read, all the source material. And so I still have a long ways to go with this series, a lot more to enjoy. I'm really, really enjoying these books. I did not think I was going to like these as much as I am, but these books are really, really phenomenal and have really like captured my heart right away. And so yeah, I'm just going to keep going with the books and kind of ignore the show, and just stick with these, and I think that'll be a good time. All right, guys, that's going to wrap us up there. Thank you so much for checking out my spoiler talk of The Great Hunt. I'll have an episode coming up in about a week or so of The Dragon Reborn, featuring Jim from the Fantasy for the Ages podcast. So stay tuned for that. Matter of fact, if you hit the subscribe button down below, you can get notified when that video drops, and you'd also be helping out the channel a lot. Again, you can also follow us on Twitter at Files Fantasy to keep up with our current reads and random tweets. Thanks again, guys, and until next time, remember, to use the portal stone, you gotta dip yourself back into that sweet, sweet magical taint. All right, guys, that is gonna wrap us up there. Thank you so much for checking. Wow.